we're going to run late. So welcome to the second half of the Beamline control session. And we're going to start off with Fanny Rodolakis talking about the implementation of Blue Sky at APS, a strategy for enhanced data acquisition and collaboration.
All right. I like that. There's not too many people. When I'm nervous, I make very stupid jokes, so that's much better. All right. So in the end, a lot of the stuff that I meant to cover 6 months ago when I wrote that abstract got covered yesterday by Eric and Nicolas. If you haven't seen their presentation, you should look at their slide. They're really, really good, and it gives you a very good picture of what we're trying to do at the APS. But the first thing I wanted to say is I'm not a software developer. I don't pretend to be one. I thought I would maybe become one when I transitioned from my role as first almost 10 years as a user. I was one of the first to graduate from Soleil. They had to change their HR policies because of us, because they realized that PhD students don't take vacation, and it's very expensive when you have to pay off everything when they leave. And so at that time, Soleil was not barely built. We had a few beamlines. So I didn't have a beamline. My beamline didn't even have hutches at the time. So I went everywhere to do beam time. And yeah, don't ask ChatGPT to make a picture for that. That doesn't work very well. And so I went to many, many different synchrotron, many different beamlines. I did more techniques that I can remember. And I think that gave me a really unique perspective in my role now, because after doing like almost 10 years as a user, I spent almost 10 years at the Beamline. And when I got tired of being called at 2 a.m., I tried to see how I could use my skills to do something else and to help another area. And one of the areas where I was often frustrated was Beamline controls, not because my Beamline controls people were not doing their job. They were doing that very well. It's just that there is kind of a disconnect between the technical solution that they provide and the way that we use it when everything is on fire at the Beamline. And sometimes it's hard to communicate because it's two worlds that speak different languages. And I figured that maybe I could help with that. So I never really had a chance to become a software developer. Maybe one day that will happen. But for now, I really use that place that I have, like right in French we say, I'm sitting between two chairs. And I can really help with bridging the gap between the technical side and the user side. Yesterday, Nicolas showed you what is the computing strategic goals for the APS. And I don't think it's very controversial to say that our historically, APS runs on top of Apex, and most of our Beamline used spec. And I don't think I need to argue a lot to tell you that we can't achieve this kind of goals with spec only. This worked as long as it worked, but now we're getting to the limitation of the new things that we can achieve, especially with our brand new light source that just achieved 100 milliamps a couple of days ago. So ahead of schedule. So the part that I wanted to tackle was this one, the empower user to realize the full potential of the APS. If you have one of the brightest sources in the world, you want the best and the latest to control it, because that's the only way you can get everything out of it. And, oh well, I don't think I need to make the case for Blue Sky. You probably heard, if you are not a Blue Sky user, you're probably tired of it already. We keep saying it's a great solution, and it is a great solution, but if you were a Beamline staff or user, it can be a little confusing. There are a lot of parts. We call it Blue Sky, but there's the Blue Sky package, and people don't know what OFIT is, and they don't know what the data broker is, and why can't I get my file, and why is everything different, and why do you want me to change everything? What I'm doing works. I have to do very crazy workaround to get my error detector to work in spec, but it works. So we had a lot of basically PR to do to explain people why Blue Sky is good for them. And it's obvious on the technical side, but when you're on the other side, it may not look like a given that this is a good solution. So what's important is for science to happen, we need all of those different pieces and all of those different people to work together seamlessly. And so you have the staff and the user, you have the support team. Everybody does something different. We mix a little bit. It's a spectrum, some beamlines. The staff will show you how to set up your measurement, and then they will explain you, and you're on your own for the rest of the week. Some of the beamline, you don't even touch anything because you don't have the time. We cannot train you, so I'm doing everything, and you just tell me what you want. So it really depends from beamline to beamline, but what I thought was my strengths, even though if you ask a Python trainer, they will tell you, like, I'm supposed to be advanced in Python because I wrote 10,000 lines of code, but they don't realize that you can write 10,000 lines of very crappy code. And this is survival for Beamline staff. Like my entire code for my Beamline started with one script that's called overnight, because you want to go to sleep, and then it grows and organically, and it becomes a monster. So we work in survival mode at the Beamline. User, they want the most out of their beam time. Sometimes for them, that's their PhD. Relies on that single sample and that single measurement, and you don't want to let them. You don't want to fail them. So I used to be in every single of those positions, and I was trying to see what I could do to help that. So I did something crazy, and I decided to go all around the Beamline at the APS. So just to give you an order, it's 71 Beamline. I just counted before we started. 71 Beamline, but some of them are run independently by institution. We are in charge of 42 of them at APS, like my division. So I went around all 42 Beamline and talked to people, because I know what works for me at my Beamline, for my user, for my experiment, my instrument, but I had no idea if that works, but that's the same for everybody else. I can't really make an objective, informed decision just based on me. So I went around, I talked to them, and I tried to see what were their sentiment about blue sky, because everybody was like, oh, they're imposing blue sky on us, but they were really scared of it. That's the answer. Some of them, they see the potential, they see why it's good, and they really want to embrace it, but a lot of them were just freaking out. And when I talked to them and tried to understand what were the reason for that resistance, I got a lot of different answers, but most of them fall into one of those categories, like, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough support, we don't know Python well enough, there is no good user interface, there is no good visualization tools, and this is way too much for me. Like, I don't need all that crap. So, okay, I went one by one and tried to find solution for that. So, the first thing, and Eric talked a little bit about that. Yes, we do have a very small team. So, obvious solution is we hire someone, and we hired Eric, and that was one of my best moves. And then we try to not chew more. We try to not bite more than we can chew. So instead of handing over blue sky to anyone who wants it, we just target very focused Beamline that will take the most of it, that we can use our use case and really start a student that we can show people after, like, look, this is what you get by going to blue sky. And we decided to focus really on the feature Beamlines, which are the ones that are the most demanding in terms of sophisticated data acquisition. And few of the Beamlines that are not feature Beamline is because they are either very related to one of the feature Beamlines, so they can be, for example, a test bed for one of the feature Beamline. We start with those ones that are known, that are not completely brand new, and then we can port the installation to a feature Beamline or vice versa. Then we had the problem with people not knowing blue sky or not knowing Python in general. People are used to spec. Spec is really, really simple. Like, you can really do very minimal typing. Now you tell people you have to do dot something and parentheses and brackets and commas. And seriously, that's nothing, but they really don't like that. And so I spent a lot of time working with an outside vendor that provides Python training that we know our friends at BNL uses. And oh my God, I drove them crazy with trying to make them do the exact curriculum that fits our people with their current proficiency. Because I know what they know, I know what they should know to be able to be independent with Blue Sky. And so we are working really hard to get them to really get more confident with Blue Sky. And then Eric talked about COMS yesterday, which is our LLM tool to try to help people get the answer they need when they need them. As far as deploying Blue Sky, a lot of people were scared about what I mentioned earlier, the technical overhead. There's too much. I don't need that much. Well, Eric has done a lot of work to break that down and make sure that we could install. Our previous model was really to go with the full shebang, but it was too much, and people cannot necessarily handle that. So we broke it down so that we can really use, like Dan told me many times, like Blue Sky is a toolkit. You just take the parts that make sense for your Beamline and your need. And that worked really well. We got hybrid installation I could talk about for hours. My Beamline was one of them. And we have the ones that go everywhere, up to the data management and the high performance computing that Hannah will talk about tomorrow. And then there is the problem of people working siloed and trying to do the same thing everywhere. And after I went around all the Beamlines to see how they work and what they need, I didn't want to stop there. So I started going around all the facilities that use Blue Sky. And I went to Brookhaven, to LS, to Slack, and now Will very graciously invited me to go to Bessie, and I don't want to stop there. I want to go to Australia. And I found that we are all trying to solve the same problem, and good solution exists. And we can use the solution and also explore possible collaboration. We're struggling the same thing. So we have a really, really good Blue Sky team. If you don't believe me, come to drink beer with us tonight. You'll see it's a lot of nice people, fun people, and very passionate about this project. And we can really learn from each other, lean on one another, and work together. That's my conclusion. I'm just repeating here the stuff that I just mentioned, so I'm not going to waste time on that. I think I can take a few questions, hopefully. And I want to thank a bunch of people from APS. There are more. And I didn't want to forget people, so I just put the facilities that I started engaging with so far. And yeah, again, if you want to chat with us, I think there will be a lot of beers after.
So yeah, very good in time. We have time for 2 or 3 questions.
Thanks for a great talk, Fanny. I'm really interested in the training that you had delivered to Beamline scientists and what level you stopped at. In particular, whether you needed to train them about generators.
All right,
which
so
are parts of Blue Sky.
yeah,
Plan.
so we had training with this company in the past, and I was one of the early Blue Sky users at the time. I had my 10,000 line of crappy code. I went there and I hated it. They talked about generator, about yield from, and when I came back and started working with them, we haven't had the training yet, but I'm working on roster right now, and I really like. When you say where you start from, I have people that have never touched Python in their life or any sort of programming. So we start from the beginning and all the way through people like Mark Wolfman that implemented their entire Blue Sky setup at their Beamline. And what we're trying to do is get those people to slowly ramp up to the right, we won't get that person that never touched a code in their life to actually be proficient, but I can get her to a state where she's not completely freaked out when she opened Blue Sky. But as far as generator goes, personally, when I was a Beamline staff, I don't need to know what the generator is. I don't need to know why I need to put yield from. I just need to know that I need to put yield from or it will crash. And all I want to know is be more confident with like subclassing and class inheritance and stuff like that. Why is there dot everywhere and things like this? And our rosters are made for people that we know will need to know Blue Sky now and progress all together.
So time for one more quick question and answer. Among the three of you.
I can be faster in answering also. Can try.
One thing that users and Beamline scientists can be intimidated by are big Python tracebacks. Do you have a strategy for handling errors in an elegant way?
I always tell them, shove that in ChatGPT, it will tell you exactly what you need to look at.
Okay, let's thank our speaker again.